So you guys know the backstory of what's been happening with Yemen. After October 7th, when Israel opened up the gates of hell on Gaza and effectively totally obliterated North Gaza and now is in the process of doing that in South Gaza as well, the only other country that stepped up to say, we're not going to let this stand, we want to fight back, is Yemen. You know, there's been some chest puffing of Iran, and there's been some tit-for-tat fighting from Hezbollah in Lebanon against the IDF, but Yemen actually, officially declared war and jumped in. Now, of course, geographically, Yemen is kind of far from Israel, so they could only do so much, but they sent some drones, they sent some missiles, and none of them really connected with any targets or got any casualties. But the most important thing they did was start seizing ships that were bound for Israel or had Israeli owners. Now, sometimes, by the way, they swung and they missed, right? And it's like they got neither of those things. They just seized a ship that had nothing to do with anything at all. But they've actually been relatively consistent in sticking with this piracy approach, and they're not backing down in any way, shape, or form. So at first, when we talked about how Yemen jumped in the war, the Houthis in Yemen jumped in the war, people were like, well, they're too far from Israel. There's going to be no consequences really as a result of them jumping in. They're just sort of virtue signaling for their own population. But that's actually not true, because by seizing the ships that are bound for Israel or have Israeli owners, what they're doing is throwing a wrench in global trade. And so you already have some very high insurance rates for ships that have to go to Israel. Well, now those insurance rates are up massively, by some reports, up to 300% increase in the insurance rates. You have some companies who are stepping in and saying, we're just not going to go to Israel anymore. You know, there's too many risks. It's simply not worth it. And so they're controlling a very important and vital route for global trade. And it's actually huge consequences, because now you're going to have way fewer goods getting into Israel, right? So look, this was all calculated and planned on their part. And they said, hey, we want to stand up for the Palestinians, so this is how we're going to contribute to it. Well, guess what? Now, because of those naval actions taken by Yemen, the U.S. has now gotten directly involved in the war and attacked Yemen. So here's what they say in the Hill. U.S. and U.K. shoot down 15 drones launched from Yemen over the Red Sea. The United States and the United Kingdom shot down 15 drones launched from Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen early Saturday morning that were targeting commercial ships in the Red Sea. U.S. Central Command said in a statement on X, formerly Twitter, that the USS Carney successfully engaged 14 unmanned aerial systems launched as a drone wave from Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen early Saturday morning. It said that it suspected the drones were one-way attack drones, adding that no ships were damaged in the Red Sea and no injuries were reported. UK Defense Secretary Grant Shapps said on X that the HMS Diamond shot down a suspected attack drone targeting merchant shipping in the Red Sea with a Sea Viper missile. He said the Royal Navy ship had recently arrived in the Red Sea to bolster international efforts to maintain maritime security. The recent spate of illegal attacks represents a direct threat to international commerce and maritime security in the Red Sea. The UK remains committed to repelling these attacks to protect the free flow of global trade. Attacks on shipping vessels in the Red Sea have escalated in months since the war began between Israel and militant group Hamas. Since that war broke out, the Houthi rebels and Hamas are both backed by Iran. Last week, Danish shipping company AP Moller Maersk announced it would be pausing its container shipments through the Red Sea until further notice due to recent attacks on shipping vessels in the sea. So look, is this going to be a snowball effect? Are you now going to have more shipping companies that are like, we're out, we're not going there? Houthi spokesman Mohammed Abdel Salam said Saturday that the rebels have been involved in communications and discussions with international parties about the recent attacks, the Associated Press reported. He said that the rebels will continue to target vessels linked with Israel until the aggression stops, the AP reported. He said that any genuine steps responding to the humanitarian situation of Palestine and Gaza through bringing in food and medicine would contribute to reducing the escalation. So look, this is quite an interesting situation that we find ourselves in, right? Because on the one hand, the US and the UK want to say, hey, you're blocking the free flow of global trade, and we're going to retaliate as a result of that. Okay, there's a logic to that, but what if then Yemen starts more directly targeting not just Israeli-owned ships or Israeli-bound ships, but also starts targeting U.S. ships, right? What if there are sort of direct attacks on U.S. ships? What then? What if one of them succeeds, right? Are we off to the races here in terms of escalation, where at some point the U.S. decides, how about we go and directly bomb Yemen, like the country Yemen, not just these drones or these ships that are out there trying to do their thing? Is that something we want to be involved with? Well, look, this is what I said the other day. Like, the whole reason why we need to shoot down Yemeni drones is because Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. That's the whole reason. They literally say, hey, if the aggression stops, if you stop trying to wipe Gaza off the map, if you stop killing massive numbers of Palestinians, then we'll stop. So we are arming, funding, aiding, and abetting Israel. We've given them effectively the greenest of green lights behind the scenes as we posture in front of the scenes like we care about civilian deaths. We facilitate them continuing what they're doing. And as a direct result of their actions, that's why Yemen jumps in, and then we have to go do the dirty work for Israel? We have to go attack Yemeni drones? Okay, well, like I said, what's the next step? You attack Yemeni ships. Okay, the next step, you do some targeted strikes inside Yemen's Houthi-controlled regions on whatever government infrastructure they have or whatever military infrastructure they have. I didn't sign up for this. Did you sign up for this? Do I want to act as the henchman for Israel as they carry out an ethnic cleansing in Gaza? No, I do not. So our tax money not only has to go fund what Israel's doing in Gaza, but our tax money now has to do acts of war against Yemen? No, totally unacceptable. And I don't buy this. There's this idea floating around, like, they almost talk about Israel's destruction of Gaza like it's this law of nature that we can do nothing about. Like, well, they're going to do what they're going to do, so obviously we have to keep giving them money and weapons to do it. And I don't buy that, right? So I'm not going to say, okay, Israel, you keep doing what you're doing, and deal with the consequences. No, if we're arming it and we're funding it, I would say, stop that, and we wouldn't have to go after Yemeni drones. So in other words, look, we are getting dragged into a conflict all because we want to act as the henchman and the right-hand man or the bodyguard of Israel. Well, no, Israel is bringing this on themselves. If Yemen's going to respond the way they're responding, well, it's very clear. If you stop destroying Gaza, then they'll stop. So just stop destroying Gaza. And this idea like, oh, if you de-escalate, that's viewed as weakness. Well, quite the contrary. If you do escalate, I view it as stupidity. You know, if you polled the American people, would you like to go to war with Yemen? What would they say? My guess is that's a very low number. My guess is that's under 20%, probably even under 10%. But nonetheless, we do it without any second thoughts. Hey, by the way, did this get through Congress? Did Congress pass a declaration of war against Yemen? Because this is effectively an act of war. They didn't do it. So the president is acting unilaterally, dragging us into a conflict that I want nothing to do with, and most Americans want nothing to do with. And by the way, this is where our tax money is going. A report just came out the other day. Homelessness is up 12%. Do we give a shit about that at all? Is that an emergency? Is that something that requires direct action? Or no, it's only shooting down Yemeni drones because Yemen is going after Israel because of their genocide. We come in and act as the reinforcements for the genocide brigade. And that's not to defend Yemen's Houthis. Like, of course, they have massive problems on their own. Yemen is a bit of a disaster because you have some areas that are controlled by the Sunnis, sort of backed by Saudi Arabia, and the Houthis are the Shias, and they're backed by Iran. And you almost have like this weird partition in Yemen, and there was a long war going on there where Saudi Arabia was going after the Houthis, but recently that war has sort of petered out a little bit, and they're looking for some sort of exit strategy, Saudi Arabia is, from that war. And so, you know, right at the last moment here, when maybe there would have been some sort of situation where you get like a North Yemen and a South Yemen, and you have a Houthi-controlled Yemen and a Sunni-controlled Yemen, when there would have been some sort of good ending to this, right at that moment, we have to jump in to defend Israel's actions in Gaza and get directly involved militarily. Well, I have no interest in that. And by the way, there were reports early on that if Hezbollah and Lebanon got more involved and started attacking Israel more directly, that the U.S. said, we will come to Israel's aid and we will attack Hezbollah. Again, did I sign up for that? Did you sign up for that? Did the American people sign up for that? Did we have a vote on that? No, none of it. But they go, all right, let's go to war with Hezbollah in Yemen. Hezbollah in Lebanon. Let's go to war with the Houthis in Yemen. At what point did they, throw Iran in the mix too? At what point did they do that? Throw Syria again in the mix too? Like, do you see how this is spiraling out of control? But look, some part of me doesn't even like using that language, like spiraling out of control, because it sort of takes away our own agency. No, these are calculated, meticulous decisions that are made where we say we will defend Israel's destruction of Gaza and go after their enemy, Yemen. Or you could just stop the slaughter of Gaza and then the ships wouldn't have anything to worry about. Now, do I think the Houthis should seize the ships even with Israel doing what it's doing? No, because a lot of those ships have nothing to do with what's going on there, right? And they're going to the civilian populations of Israel. So they shouldn't do it. But since they're doing it, there's, only a certain number of ways we can react to it, right? We can do nothing, we can attack, or we can de-escalate, stop the slaughter in Gaza, and then have no problems whatsoever. And we pick the worst of all worlds. It's not even like we're doing nothing and saying, Israel, you're on your own to deal with this. No. It's, we're going to do your dirty work for you. And sure, today we attack 15 Yemeni drones, but tomorrow it's, let's go after some ships. Then it's, well, let's go after whatever government buildings they have or military installations they have. And then, again, you're off to the races. Because then that invites other retaliatory strikes from who? I don't know, Shia militias in Iraq and Syria and from Hezbollah. And here we are. We have to stop acting like everything we do exists in a vacuum. Actions have consequences. And Israel's destruction of Gaza, one of the consequences of that was the Houthis got involved and they're destroying trade in the region very purposefully. So I don't want to dig in deeper on the side of Israel when I don't agree with what they're doing. But anyway, there you have it. By the way, not going to see much talk about this. We effectively did an act of war against Yemen, and nobody can even talk about it, right? And again, now it's just shooting down 15 drones. What happens next? What happens next? I guess we're all going to find out. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.